Welcome to 010 Podcast. I'm Dr. Josie.
And I'm Andy.
And we're here for real, honest conversations about life, the successes, struggles, and everything in between. Join us for laughs, authenticity, and the feeling of talking with friends who truly get it. Hey, welcome, Hannah and Caroline, to the 010 Podcast. So happy you're here. You two are a couple that we thought of because of your friendship and how you've made business and friendship go hand in hand. Let's talk a little bit about your connection to college at Mary, and then how you guys became a powerhouse partnership with a vision and a whole lot of grit. They launched multiple businesses together, proving that building something meaningful is even better when done with your best friend. Welcome to our show.
Thank you guys. that was great.
Yeah, that was great. Very true with it's more fun with a friend.
More fun with a friend. And I think grit is a huge thing for you guys too. It seems like that comes up often when I get to
Just stick to it.
Do your intros, other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to think of when we first met. I think I met Caroline first, and then I met you later. Maybe. Was it our networking group?
Yeah, I think we
Was that
met
the
at
first
Match
time we
Networks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's got to be 10 years ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
My practice has been, 8,
Yeah, because
9.
we're at 9 too. So it had to have been 9-ish.
Because we went to your 1 million cups.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Talk. Yes.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
1 million cups. Did
Have
you ever
guys
do?
done? I've never. Have you guys done it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Few
I
times.
watched you guys do the one on the
Drive.
The drive. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So let's maybe talk about how you guys met and kind of what has developed since then.
Yeah.
Who? Like, would you say your names too? Like,
Yeah,
your
maybe.
names and the name of your business is.
I'm Caroline Crary, and my business partner is Hannah Haynes. And we started Bismarck Magazine actually November 6th. It'll be 9 years ago on November 6th. So we're coming up on our 9-year anniversary in just a couple of weeks. And we do celebrate our anniversary like we're a married couple.
As you should.
Absolutely.
Some years are bigger than others. Just depends on what we have going on. This year we're going to be going out to dinner together. We're saving it all up for the big 10 years next year. But we started, Bismarck Magazine, and have since attempted a few others.
Started others and then let them go just based on our lifestyle and stuff like that.
And tried to do some more things, but God has different plans for us sometimes, and so we're
And also learning to deal with, I think, the disappointment when something doesn't maybe pan out the way you expected it to. And I think that's been what we've dealt with the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. And figuring out how to make it enough, because we've streamlined a lot of our business and everyone has a role now and everyone's really good at their role because we've been doing it for so long. So what was the next step to keep fulfilling the need of being
growing, right? As you grow as a person and you grow as a business, you have to evolve. And if you're not holding yourself to the next level, then you're just kind of staying stagnant. And neither of us do that well. And so how do you take that next step when you've already kind of capped out that we're already doing? Going back to your first question, how we met, it was at college. I was a freshman, she was a sophomore, but we're only 6 months apart.
Yep. She's 6 months younger.
Yeah. And we both joined, she was part of DECA, I joined DECA to get involved. And we did DECA together. We never competed.
And we never had a class together. We never were roommates. The first time we actually spent quality time together, we got to go on a trip to Washington, D.C. for a Scythe Students in Free Enterprise conference. And I knew that I was going to be friends with her when she set her alarm to the same time that I set my alarm to get up in the morning, which is 10 minutes before you have to be at something. And we
Stresses me out.
just not morning people, and we both can very much get it together in a very short amount of time. And I had only traveled with other females who needed to be up, 2 hours before you needed to be somewhere, and I just was like, I need my sleep. And she did too. And that's literally when I was like, okay, I think I can be friends with this girl. But then I saw the way she packed her suitcase and I was like, I don't know. But it's funny now that like you think back to that story and it's literally us.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a lot of similarities, but we're very different in the way we pack our suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes the partnership work.
So you kind of said that from the beginning. I think Andy and I got to visit with you guys in the coffee shop one day, and you said that. It was like, pick your roles, do your things, let the other person be good at what they're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Can you explain what DECA is? Because I wouldn't have known without knowing you guys.
Yeah, it's a business and marketing club. And so each college or high school, they're in high school now. I didn't do the high school, but did you?
No, I didn't either.
And so you do different volunteer projects, but then also you prepare for this big competition, either regionally or nationally. And so if you make it in regionals, then you get nationals. And so it's a different business project categories like HR, retail, marketing, sports entertainment. There's a ton of different categories that you can compete in. And I think we only competed together one time.
Yeah, I think just last year, or my senior year of college. But
Were you guys both going to school for business then?
basically,
Or-
I mean, we have both have our caveats. I did public relations and she did finance.
Were you teaching for a while?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. So,
DECA. Yeah.
oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. So when
That's how
I
you got the job.
Oh.
when I was in college for DECA, I became the North Dakota State President of DECA for college, and so I got involved with the director for North Dakota, and I graduated from college in 2014, and that summer he Facebook messaged me and was like, I would really like if you could look at taking this job at West Fargo High School, being the marketing teacher and the DECA advisor. I was like, what? And I went to the job interview and I felt like they pitched me the job more than, I mean, school was starting in like a month and a half, so they needed a teacher, and so I did it. And so, yeah, I actually ended up becoming a DECA advisor right out of college to a bunch of high school students who had no idea that I was 22 years old. I kept that very much under wraps. But yeah, and it was great. What I loved about it is that it gives kids direction. It helped a lot of them decide what they were going to do in college. And I had never been a part of the high school side of things. I only had been set up. It was really cool to see kids go to college knowing, maybe a little bit more of what they wanted to do and not floundering just because they had been exposed to like the business side of things. We got to create a real business. I walked them through all those steps. And they all took like tons of pride in it. So that was really fun. And yeah, I was a teacher for 2 years. It's so weird.
Well, I don't know why I always thought you had a teaching degree, and that's how that started.
No, it's a
okay.
fluke. It's a total fluke. I had an emergency license
Okay.
that I was able to obtain for 2 years. And that was enough for me.
And then tell us about the next piece.
So we became really good friends in college. And so when she left, she would come back a lot because she was getting that you were doing continuing
Yes,
ed.
I had to for the teaching emergency license, I had to come back to actually BSC a lot on Fridays to do a continuing education to fulfill the license requirements.
And the comment that you make makes me laugh all the time whenever we talk about our friendship, she's like, yeah, I mean, I graduated college and then, I went home. And Hannah just kept calling me. And I'm like, yeah, we were friends. And
She called me so much, and I was like, oh, we're doing this. We're staying friends. So we did.
Yeah. It takes that person.
I know. It does. She's good at that. She's good at that with her other friends too. But
so it just cracks me up because she makes that comment a lot. I'm like, well, she just kept calling me. I'm like, yeah, we were friends. Of course I called you. And so she came back a lot my senior year and then the following year after I graduated too. And so we had spent a lot of time.
I finally just bought an air mattress and shipped it to Hannah's condo. And then every time I would get there, it'd be blown up and ready to roll because I didn't want to. We also.
We hung out.
We hung out, but I would just park my air mattress next to her bed and we'd do our thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Pillow talk.
Yeah.
About businesses.
I mean,
and friends.
And we were both very single and just in our, exciting 22, the world is fresh, you just have the world is your oyster kind of a mindset. And we started talking about, I wanted her to move back and she loved being back in Bismarck and all of our friends were there. And we were at lunch one day and she was like, well, the only way I'm moving back is if I own my own business. I literally was like, all right, what are we starting? And we just we talked about Fargo Monthly and all of the magazines and publications in Fargo. And then we started talking about the ones in Minneapolis. And it just kind of evolved from there. And we figured out how much it was going to cost to print the first issue. And we put our life savings together and printed the first issue.
Which my life savings at 22 years old was not a whole
It was $5,000 each. Yeah, $8,000.
We started Bismarck Magazine at $8,000. Oh yeah, it was everything we had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. $8,000 and a $12,000 credit card limit that we were real proud of.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and then from there, it's just turned into us now celebrating 9-year anniversary in a couple weeks. So.
And that stage was so fun. We had the first two pages of the magazine designed on an iPad, and she was still finishing out her teaching contract. I had been working for a nonprofit and realized that nonprofit life was really just not for me. I think it takes a very special person to do that, and it's wonderful and we need those people, but it was just not, I couldn't understand it. And so I ended up quitting that to go to this full time. I did have another job. I worked at Target as much as I possibly could because we obviously weren't getting paid at Bismarck Magazine. So I just sold during the day, sold ads and tried to take a meeting with whoever would let me walk into their business.
I would love to go back because I had a few hours in my afternoon at school. And so I would just pick up the phone and start calling. And I just would kill to go back to what I said on the phone. What did I say on the phone? And I sold our first ad via my telephone at my office at school. And it was to Watford City, Mackenzie County Tourism. And I just I would pay money to find out what I said to him and what he said to me and how it happened.
Do you still work with them?
No. That man left Watford City Tourism after probably 5 years. It was an oil thing too, right? They had a lot of money to spend. Right? They were exploding. And
yeah.
So we just it was, I can't believe he believed in me and us. And
we were 22 years old and didn't want to give off that vibe, I think. And so I know you can't tell now, but we dressed extremely professional. Put on a full face of makeup every day and tried to get dressed extremely
even
adult.
Lana Brooks, owner of Terry's Health Products, the other day at a meeting I was in, I don't know if you were at it, Andy, but she said something to the effect of if people had known how young you were, she's like, I figured you guys were really young because when she bought it in and advertised, or she still does. So she's been one from the very beginning, but just you were dressed so well that you really, and you acted professionally and older, so you didn't really know how old you guys were. And we definitely played into that. I think it was a huge benefit for us. So, yeah.
Why do you think that is? That we live in a world that was necessary for you? Do you think it's just the male-female thing? Do you think had a male that was 22 been in the same position, it would have been different? Or do you think
I think you just have to prove yourself.
Right.
And we were selling something that was only a concept at that point. We hadn't even had our first issue. It got easier and easier with every issue that we pushed out. And a lot of magazines at that point too had come and gone. So we had seen a lot of, there were 3 at the time, but there had been, people who had tried to start it and then maybe didn't or did the first issue and then it went away. We just wanted to be a business and we knew going into it that it was going to be challenging. Obviously, we didn't know quite what we were getting into, but we wanted to make sure that we were going to produce multiple issues. You know, we just didn't want to be
It wasn't our side gig. It wasn't our hobby.
Right.
It was our real job.
Right.
And we jumped in with both feet. And both quit our day jobs. And so that we could literally put everything we had into it. And yeah, I just think between that and like appearing older, I don't know. But I know it helped because it's been commented on now 10 years later by multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Solvac, our huge mentor, he brings it up and talks about it too. And he was very instrumental in our University of Mary days and still is. We just had dinner with him on Wednesday. And it's just, I don't know why, but everyone feels that way. I don't know. Yeah. Obviously, if we would have rolled up looking slobby, we probably
Well, I think I just, because immediately my mind goes to other conversations that we've had about maybe being a female in business being an obstacle. And then, you throw in the fact that back then you were young females trying to create a business. And I just, in this day and age, you just think that shouldn't be an obstacle anymore. But I know that it still is for many women.
Honestly, though, like part of our job that I like a lot is River and Ranch, our home publication, and getting to work with a lot of those men in that industry.
Yes,
And
different than in a business industry.
Yes, and so like, I'll have conversations for like an hour with one of our like landscape clients.
And honestly, sometimes I feel like we're taken more seriously by those men than we are in.
Why do you think that is?
Business world.
I mean, do you ever give that any serious thought?
No.
But I mean, you talk about that, and to me, it was never super apparent with the magazine. There's been some instances where I'm like, oh, yeah, it's because we're female.
Mm-hmm.
But
not with the magazine.
Not with the magazine.
Because it's a good job for a girl. That's what my mother said to me one day. That's a great job for a girl. And I literally we were on a ski lift and I thought I was going to push her off. And I called her that night, I think, and told her about it. And
it was like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we had oh my gosh, yeah, we were both up randomly texting each other at like 3 in the morning. So then we were like, why are we texting? Let's just call each other. And I told her, and I'm like, it's true. I mean, maybe that's why. I don't know, but
I don't know. And for me, anyway, it took a little bit when I was working in an industry where I was in a business where it was man and woman both there. Mm-hmm. I felt like there was a difference there, and it was more like, how long have you been in practice, right? Mm-hmm. But as soon as I went on my own, I'd say most of it was honestly females give each other the hardest time. More than the men do.
100%.
Yes. Like, and it's the older females that you have to prove yourself
older
to.
Females.
It wasn't. It was, and it's, and I am really attracted to wisdom. I like being around, wise women, and typically it's elder, I would say. Not always, like we are great, right? But, I do find that they were the hardest ones that were like, you had to really get very relational in order for them to be like, okay, maybe I'll say something.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. If you actually just step back and assess it, I would say we've had better success with some of the men. And it's funny too, now we're heavy in our bridal phase of the year. So Badlands Bride is coming out in January. And right before we came here, we got an email and I'm like, just don't even respond. Just do not even respond. And I was like, why is bridal always like this? Why is bridal like this? And I go, honestly, because it's a bunch of women.
Mm-hmm. It's like critique after critique after critique. And like you send one thing out and so we do a lot of email blasts with Badlands Bride. We've just rebranded it. I want to make a huge splash with this new expansion in that magazine. And so I send out like bi-weekly to once a week newsletters. And I'm not kidding you. We do that with Bismarck Magazine once a month, and I get responses like, well, loved the issue. Can't wait to pick it up, right? Or how do I advertise? That's what I was expecting with this. And I have gotten more emails about, like, with negative connotations than ever. Of like, why wasn't this? How come you're not doing this? And I'm like, the first issue hasn't even come out.
We don't even have an issue out, and we're getting like hammered. So Yes. Now that we've talked it out,
It's probably industry related then,
Yes.
quite a bit too.
yeah, it
You
seems
know,
like it could be a
Right, because then with other businesses that we've tried to start, we always joke that if our husbands would have been the lead on it, it probably would have been a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. You guys have been through some stuff.
yeah.
But
Is that something you want to talk about?
I don't care. It doesn't matter. We can say whatever you want to say.
Well, because I think a lot of people, I think the reason that it might be relevant to talk about is that a lot of people aren't aware of, and listen, you guys know I believe wholeheartedly that things happen for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but, you know, some of the obstacles that you guys faced maybe didn't seem fair, to just put it real lightly, right? So, maybe share with your vision that you had and some of the obstacles that you faced trying to realize that vision.
Well, I want to start by saying we both very much know that life is not fair.
Yeah.
We are big, like, we know that life is not
Yeah.
fair, and
It's not.
you have to work hard for what you want. And we're not people that call or email or text or like get butthurt easily, or, you know. So when we do get upset about something, I think it's actually warranted. So, 3 years ago?
Well, I mean, it's no secret. I think that we've been trying to bring a venue to Bismarck. And what people don't know probably is that we've actually, I mean, we've been trying to do this for like years and years and years. I actually
You tried before the
I
magazine.
tried even before I met Hannah to buy some. I mean, I'll just say it. It's kind of insane. It's Brewhalla. I tried to buy Brewhalla in Bismarck. Not Brewhalla, the Smith building right next to it, which is now Drecker Brewing, which is insane if either of you have ever been there. Like, that's my dad and I. 1603 had just started here. My parents came to town. I was in college. And it's funny because you were working there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we had connected all that. And my parents came to town. And I'm like, we have to go look at this place. We have to see it because it was really, really revolutionary. Like, I mean, it was so cool. And then I think I was a junior in college. And then we went back to Fargo that summer, and my dad and I started like looking for buildings, and it was called the Smith Building, and it was vacant and so run down. We were estimating back then, 10 years ago, about $1 million remodel, and it turned into what Drecker and Brewhalla, that little area, is today, which is amazing. They did a beautiful job. So glad it didn't happen, because then I wouldn't have been here. Like, I wouldn't have moved back here and met Hannah, or not met Hannah, but worked with Hannah. So, like, that's a long time ago that, like, I started dipping my toes. And then from there, Hannah and I have done so much research over, I mean, really, like, since the beginning. Obviously, you go through waves of, like, seriousness and, like, putting it on the back burner, and seriousness and back burner. But
I think once Bismarck Magazine Corporation, like, we started Bismarck Magazine
in 2016, March of 2016 was our first issue.
Then January of 17, our first bridal magazine came out. February of 18, River and Ranch. We hired a full-time salesperson. We had an intern. 19, we expanded westward. And so there was just a lot of growth in 5 years. And it was always like we realized we needed to do more, and we wanted to do more. And so I think in 2020, we started looking.
Yeah, we really started looking. So yeah, we were under contract on a place out east of town. And I mean,
and this is after looking at like so many listings. Like, we had been looking forever.
Yeah. So we finally get under contract on this place, and it was an 18,000 square foot building. It was perfect. We actually weren't doing anything to it. We were just going to, it was a riding arena, so we were going to put some concrete on, like, where it was dirt in the giant riding arena that was about 12,000 square feet. And it had some lean-tos, and, it was just perfect. It was a really good fit for us. And then we just ran into massive roadblocks with the county and the township
And some neighbors.
and it was insane.
No one, so the county wouldn't take us seriously. Like, we had to have our realtor call and ask how, like, what even we needed, because he wouldn't take our calls. And
He kept, when he would answer us, he would say, well, let me know when you guys get serious. And I'm like, no, we literally have a signed purchase agreement. I don't know how much more serious you need me to be. Like, call me when you guys are serious. Well, we're going to close here in a month and we're going to start construction the day of. So we're serious. Can you tell me if I can even paint this building or not? Like, I literally didn't know. And we were scared to touch it because everyone was so up in arms.
and so, like, that's what we had to call and ask, can we pull a tree out without a permit? Can we paint a building without a permit? Can we
'Cause
take
we
down
knew
the
that
sheds without a permit?
If we did one thing out of line or one thing wrong, the neighbors were going to be on us. So we were just like super, I'll say Hannah and I aren't necessarily rule followers. We're definitely the,
Ask forgiveness.
ask for forgiveness later. But this one we were not going to do that because we just knew that we had to do everything perfect. And then it blew up in our faces. If you ask me, and I'm being really honest, we were ambushed at the county building or city building in downtown Bismarck.
It was 3 days before we closed.
And they told us, they sat us down in a room full of 10 people,
Which was supposed to be 2.
and we had no idea. Like, we had no idea that's what we were walking into.
Like, to the point where I had just gotten done coaching a class. I was in shorts and a t-shirt. It was supposed to be very informal. We were just going to get a list of things that we had to get them so that we could start literally start construction in 4 days.
And they ambushed us, literally. That's the only word I can think of.
They meaning the Burley County.
There was someone from highway department. There was someone from
The fire department.
Yep. There was someone from
The township.
Yep, the township, and multiple other people. The guy who kept telling me to when I get serious, then call. He didn't even show up. I've never met him. He never showed up, and he was supposed to be our number one point of contact. And they basically told us that there's a future use plan for the county, and we would need to put a road down the middle of our property. And in order to put that road in, we would need to move power lines. So we were looking at $1 million for this road that led to a pasture. It will never, ever be developed. So I would say politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No other word than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we left the meeting and in separate cars. She cried, we cried. I called our realtor and said it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into the sellers threatening to sue for specific performance. And so they said, we have to buy the building. It was $1 million building. And if we didn't go through with it, they were going to sue. And so we got a really great attorney and tried to figure it out in a very short amount of time. And this is so weird. I'll just go into it. For me, I was miserable. I mean, it's still really hard for me to talk about. I was getting married in a month. I was having serious relationship problems with my family personally. It was horrible. It was a horrible time. And so I would just go home and lay in my bed and bawl. It was horrible. I've never been in that place and I'll never go back to that place. It was horrible. And I kept hearing that song, Take Me to Church. I don't even know if it's a good song or a bad song. And I kept hearing it in my head and it kept saying, take me to church, take me to church. And I think we called you guys one night and you're like, I'm going to adoration with John. And I said, well, me either. So we went to adoration and I walked in at Cathedral and I got on my knees and I literally begged for mercy. I've never done anything like that in my entire life, and I begged. Sorry, I didn't know it was going to get this deep, but, and then I left. We were probably there an hour and a half, and I left. And I went home, and I was sitting in my living room on the blue chair, and the realtor called and said, they're dropping it all. They'll let you out of everything, and they're not even going to keep your earnest money. They're giving it back. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
they're like, wow. Like, I'll never get over it. Like, if that isn't the power of God, I don't know what is. I finally went to church, and then it happened. So it was just a really hard time, but God got us through it after a couple weeks. So yeah.
And now that's like the motto of like our life is if it's meant to be, it'll be. And like, we don't really worry about anything anymore. It's just, well, for like, especially for business, like if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And we're here along for the ride. And that's like, literally that's it. And so we've tried a couple other times and God's not ready.
And like, it's so obvious to see now why that first one didn't work. It is so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've tried again very seriously. And,
we've kind of seen it.
I can see it. It's given me a relationship back with my family that I was going through that year before or 2 years before out at the one, out east of town. So like because this one was going to be even bigger and better and more. And so we needed like some guidance. So we had asked to be like, we'd asked my dad and brother to be a part of it just because my dad's been in business for his whole life and we've learned from him and stuff. So it was going to be a really great partnership. And at that point, I wasn't even speaking to my brother. So like now I talk to him 3 times a day again. So like if there's anything that came out of that second one, for me, it's that. But
and I think we learned a lot about the city in the next, in the second one. And
it's funny because we were like, oh man, we had to deal with the county. That was miserable. We've heard the city's way better. So like, this will be easy.
No idea. Most of us have no clue.
Yeah, no, and that's the craziest thing. I think, too, like, it's insane when you find out how important it is to like have your local elected officials
and like do your research on the people that you're voting for and how important it is to vote, because what the decisions that they make and the people that they appoint to those different positions and committees
making
and chairs,
a lot of big decisions for our community. And the second one was stunted, I'll say, by a planning zoning committee of 5 people. It's literally the reason today why we're not building a venue.
And I think the biggest
and those are appointed people that are just random people who wanted to be on the board.
On the planning and zoning,
Okay.
who have never, I'm not going to say never because I don't know that, who don't currently own businesses, who don't know the economy maybe at this point of how much it's going to take and how much capital that it's going to take to build something that they want to see. And that was what it kind of came down to, is that they didn't like the design that we had proposed. And the design that they had proposed was going to be
a $12 million building.
Not even like a multi-million dollar. Yeah. That, number one, the ground can't support, but that's another conversation. And number 2, you would never make it back. On a business perspective, the money cannot get there unless you're looking at a legacy project.
And sorry, I'm a firm believer that no matter how much money you have, you should always get a return on something. And we're not in the position to be doing a legacy project anyways, but like, that's just dumb. At what point do you have so much money that you literally don't care if you make any back? I hope one day if I'm a bajillionaire, I'm still, like, you're in business to make money.
Right.
So, yeah.
So Dave, so many successful people talk about their failures, right? And how you have to fail, which, however you want to say that. How you do have to go through these things in order to grow and learn and get better, right? So when you say it brought you closer to God or, whatever, brought you closer to your family, how do you look back on those things? How do you apply that to business, or how do you, or is it things that you're comfortable talking about with, other people, entrepreneurs and things like that? Because we all go through those, right?
Yeah, actually, it's funny enough that you say that. We were doing a style shoot at the Burleigh County Courthouse the other day, and we had to have a police officer escort us to the building and let us into the courtroom and stuff. And I ended up like kind of side talking to him, and he knew exactly who we were, and was like, "Oh, you were the two that were trying to start a wedding venue," and I'm like, "Check for the week." we get asked once a week, one of us, like it's every week we like have a little like we got asked about the venue. He asked, and he said, he has some property north of town, and I don't know, it was like 40 acres or something. And I was very much like, save Hannah's phone number, call anytime. We are done. We're not doing it again. If you guys would like any, we went through a lot of stuff, and I feel like asked me a question about fire suppression in a building, and I can tell you. So like,
who would have thought?
I know, right? So I was like, if feel free to save her number and call us.
I mean, we know the average. Like, I could tell you the numbers of what a woman spends on her average dress in the state of North Dakota. Like, that's how detailed of the research that we did. So it's just, if someone else is interested, but I would say that we've tapped out our.
And it's interesting too if you look at that, because I feel like we should persevere longer or have more. Like, I see people doing things for Bismarck, trying to change the city and grow it and make it better, who just get up in the morning and do it all over again. And I'm like, if I got hit down that many times, I would never get out of bed. I'm like, at what point do you get hit in the face so many times that you just stop? But I think we're to that point.
And I think we're to the point where if it fell into, it would have to fall into our laps.
Yes.
It would have to be very, very, very easy. It'd have to be one of those things where, wow, okay, yeah, this can happen.
Force versus flow.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't sound like, you guys have the resilience of all those people that do that over and over again, but you're looking for a different route, I would say now, or like the easier route.
And there's nothing, like, I think sometimes people poo-poo the easier route.
Yeah.
But it's like, Josie and I have run a retreat called The Honest Entrepreneur, and we talk about being honest piece of being an entrepreneur, right? Because people on the outside looking in, I think, have a different perspective than what it's like to actually be a business owner and run a business. But one of the things that we talk about is force versus flow, and I think in life and in business, why shouldn't things flow? They should. So if there's all this force,
so many roadblocks.
There's got to be a reason for that, right? That you're having to put so much force into it. And I do believe that if and when the day comes that you have this type of a venue, it'll flow. It'll all flow, and you'll just look at each other and be like, well, this is exactly what we were waiting for, and this is why the roadblocks were there. And but it's hard. It's kind of my initial question is like, it's hard to save face sometimes, right? When you have gone through some of these things, because I've had some build visions too. And how do you handle those things? When people bring it up, because not everyone's probably bringing it up with kindness and with grace.
I would say that we've seen a lot of, and not a lot, but our blunders with the magazine, I think, are pointed out more than the failure with the venue.
Mm-hmm.
People are very critical on what we publish and what we print, and I think we've seen more pushback on that side of our business rather than.
And like, you just don't understand the venue thing unless you're in it, kind of, and like, unless you actually pay attention to local politics and local government, and like, you're aware and watch meetings and watch planning and zoning meetings, and not a lot. I would love to know the percentage of the Bismarck population that's actually aware of that kind of thing, because honestly, like, I myself wasn't even really aware until this happened, until our friend Ann Crary became a city commissioner, until our friend Kate Herzog got on Perk Board. Like, I myself just wasn't into it, and now you hear the stuff and you're just like mind blown to a point where I'm like, I don't know if I can hear this anymore. So yeah,
Do you think that's politics in general?
probably, but if you look at the growth of, and we don't need to be anyone but Bismarck, I'm not saying that, but if you look at the growth of Fargo in the last 10 years, it's uncanny. If you look at the growth of Forks, it's uncanny.
Minot?
If you look at the growth of Minot, unbelievable. Honestly, you guys, even Mandan.
I was going to say Mandan.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
My dad came to town after 10 years for this land that we were looking at for the latest venue. And he hadn't been here since I graduated college in 2014. And he drove through and he's like, I took him all the way up to, we had dinner at Panda Express. So I'm not saying we just stayed downtown. We went all over town. We went to Mandan. We really got around town. And he goes, what's changed? What's changed? And I was like, wow, you're right. We got a Costco. And the lots filled up. It's just interesting to hear it from someone's perspective who hadn't been here in 10 years and just. So yeah, I just think it's really important to pay attention to that stuff if you care about your town and want to see it.
If you wonder if you're complaining about how we don't have something or something's not here, ask your city officials why we don't have that. Yeah. Look more into it. Someone's probably tried to start something.
Right. Okay, I think this is a good stopping point because I think we need a part B to our conversation. So we will be back with another.
Thank you so much for listening to 010 Podcast. We hope you learned something new today, and we hope you enjoyed your time with us. Please find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, 010retreats.com. Join us next week, same time, same place, 102.5.